The palace of Varnus Prime stood high above the clouds, its towers glowing like fireflies in the dark night. The walls were made of silver crystal, and the air was filled with the hum of alien energy. Inside that grand place, every step echoed with pride, power, and fear. The people of Varnus called their queen divine, a ruler chosen by the stars themselves. No one dared speak to her without kneeling, and yet, a human walked those sacred halls. His name was Sergeant Daniel Cole, once a soldier of Earth's Defense Corps, now the only human assigned to protect the alien queen. Many Varnus nobles hated the idea. To them, humans were wild creatures, brave but unrefined, emotional but unpredictable. They said a human did not belong among royalty, but the queen herself had insisted. She had heard stories of human bravery and wished to see if they were true. Daniel's armor was simple, black with blue stripes of the Peace Corps. His duty was not glamorous. He stood guard outside the queen's chamber day and night, silent as a statue. But even in silence, he observed more than anyone realized. He saw how the queen smiled politely in front of her people, but looked tired when alone. He saw her walking the palace gardens late at night, her crown removed, her eyes sad and distant. And he noticed something else, the way her husband, Lord Vekar, looked at her. His smiles never reached his eyes. His tone, even in public, carried poison. Daniel was trained not to speak unless spoken to, but humans had a habit of caring too much. He felt it every time she passed him, nodding slightly in acknowledgement. A small kindness in a place where everyone else treated him like air. The queen was unlike anyone he had met. Her skin glowed faintly, her hair shimmered like white silk, and her voice carried warmth even when her words were cold. There was a sadness in her that Daniel could not explain. She ruled an empire that spanned dozens of worlds, yet she looked as if she carried the weight of all of them on her shoulders. One night, after the royal court had gone quiet and the twin moons hung over the palace, Daniel found himself staring at the stars beyond the glass walls. The silence was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of palace energy lines. He thought of Earth, of blue skies, of the smell of rain, of the laughter of people he'd never see again. He missed the noise, the chaos, the feeling of home. Here among the aliens, everything was beautiful but cold. He often wondered if the queen felt the same, surrounded by beauty, but alone. Then a faint sound caught his attention, a whisper from the far end of the corridor. He turned slightly, eyes narrowing. Voices, two of them. He stayed still, letting the echoes carry closer. "She grows weak," a voice hissed, sharp, male, angry. "The council questions her rule. Tonight it ends." Daniel's heart tightened. The voice was familiar. He recognized it. Lord Vekar. He moved closer, staying in the shadows. The alien consort stood with another figure cloaked in black. In Vakar's hand gleamed a curved dagger made of red crystal, the kind used in execution ceremonies. "Are the guards loyal?" the other figure whispered. "They are loyal to power," Vekar replied coldly. "And by sunrise I will be the only power left." Daniel's blood ran cold. He watched as they turned and disappeared down the hallway. His mind raced. It wasn't his place to interfere in royal matters. A guard's word meant nothing against a noble's. If he spoke, he might be executed. But the queen, she would die if he did nothing. He stood there, torn between duty and conscience. His training told him to stay silent. His heart, that stubborn human heart, refused. He looked toward the queen's chamber door, glowing softly under the moonlight. He could see her shadow moving inside, unaware of the danger. Daniel took a deep breath. "To hell with the rules," he muttered under his breath. And with steady steps, the lone human guard walked toward destiny, ready to warn a queen who might not even believe him, but who needed him more than she knew. The halls of the palace were silent except for the soft echo of Daniel's boots. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of the entire Varnus Empire rested on his shoulders. The energy lines along the walls flickered softly, painting his face in cold blue light. He had seen many strange things in his life. Wars on Earth, battles on distant colonies, but nothing prepared him for this. A human standing between a queen and her own husband, who planned her death. He reached the golden doors of the queen's private chamber and paused. Her silhouette was visible behind the crystal walls, delicate and fragile in a way that no ruler should ever appear. The humans who trained him had always spoken of courage. But courage was easy when fear was abstract. This was real. Her life was at stake, and the man who swore to protect her, her own consort, was hunting her like prey. Daniel's heart pounded. He had no weapons for diplomacy, no words that could command loyalty here. Yet he had something stronger, truth. Humans had always believed in standing for what was right, even when the odds were impossible. He raised his voice, careful but firm. "Your Majesty," he said, his tone carrying across the room. The queen turned, startled by the sound. "Human?" she asked, her violet eyes wide. "What are you doing here at this hour?" Daniel bowed slightly. "I must warn you. Do not enter your chamber. Your husband, he plans to kill you tonight." For a long moment she stared at him as if his words were impossible, absurd. The soft silver glow of her skin made her look otherworldly, and Daniel felt an instinctive respect, a fear, and a strange warmth all at once. "You accuse Lord Vicar of murder," she said, her voice calm but icy. "You dare speak such words to me?" Daniel swallowed, steadying himself. "I heard him. I saw him preparing. I would not lie, and I cannot let him succeed." The queen's lips trembled, and for the first time Daniel saw the doubt and fear hiding behind her regal composure. She stepped closer as if studying him, questioning the very ground he stood on. "Humans always rush to believe the worst," she whispered. "You think betrayal is in every glance, in every word. My husband is noble. He is my partner. You would have me believe he wants me dead?" Daniel met her gaze squarely, refusing to falter. "I've seen men and women do terrible things for power, Your Majesty. I've seen friends turn on friends, brothers kill brothers. Evil hides behind faces we trust most. I've served in battles you cannot imagine. This is real. He's coming for you now." The queen's hands shook. She did not move. Her chest rose and fell quickly, and Daniel could see her pulse through the thin, translucent skin at her wrist. For a moment silence held them both, broken only by the faint hum of the palace energy lines. Then a distant sound reached them, soft footsteps echoing in the corridor. Slow, deliberate, the way a predator moves before it strikes. The queen's eyes widened in recognition. That is his step," she whispered, fear finally surfacing. He's coming?" Daniel nodded, voice low but firm. "Yes, ma'am. You must not go inside. Stay with me, and I promise, I will protect you." Tears filled her eyes, not from weakness but from the sudden, terrifying clarity. She had ruled an empire, commanded armies, made life and death decisions countless times, but she had never faced danger from the one person she trusted most. "Do you think I should run?" she asked, her voice barely audible, trembling. Daniel shook his head. "No, running is a choice, but courage is what will save you. Stay calm, trust me. You are not alone." A chill ran through the corridor as the footsteps drew closer. The queen's breath quickened, but for the first time Daniel saw her steel returning. She straightened, lifted her chin, and met his eyes with a mixture of fear and trust. He drew his sidearm slowly, not to threaten her, but to prepare for the storm that was about to hit. Tonight the palace would see what few ever witnessed. A human standing firm, not for glory, not for power, but for the life of a queen who might not even believe him yet. And in that quiet moment before the storm, both human and queen understood one simple truth. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is standing between darkness and the one you vow to protect no matter the cost. The queen stood frozen, her eyes locked on Daniel, her human guard. The words he had spoken burned in her mind like a wildfire she could not extinguish. Her hands trembled slightly, the delicate silver rings on her fingers glinting in the moonlight. Could it really be true? Could Lord Vakar, the man she had trusted, loved, and shared her throne with, truly wish her death? Daniel watched her closely, seeing the storm behind her eyes. She was a ruler, yes, but she was also a woman, fragile, human in her emotions despite her alien appearance. He had trained for countless battles, faced countless enemies, yet nothing had prepared him for the look in her eyes. The raw confusion, the fear, the desperate search for truth. "You believe me?" he asked quietly, careful not to alarm her further. The Queen shook her head, disbelief etched across her face. "Why would you lie, human?" she whispered. "I have heard whispers before. Court rumors, threats from rivals. But this is different. I cannot imagine my own husband." Her voice trailed off, choked by emotion. Daniel stepped closer, keeping his weapon ready but lowering it slightly, showing respect. "Because I would not, and because I have never been more certain of anything in my life. I have fought soldiers, rebels, even aliens far stronger than your guards. But nothing compares to a human life standing in the path of someone who wants to end the person they once swore to protect. You must believe me, Your Majesty, or you will not survive the night." Her violet eye glistened with tears. "You speak like humans are fearless," she said softly, almost to herself. "Yet I see fear in your eyes too." Daniel allowed a small, grim smile. "Fear is natural. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is facing it anyway." The Queen's lips pressed together. Her mind raced with memories of her husband. The charming smile, the gentle words whispered during council meetings, the way he had held her hand on the balcony. Could the same hands, the same lips now plan her death? Her stomach tightened with dread, and a cold sweat covered her brow. Outside the chamber, the palace was quiet, but Daniel's instincts screamed danger. He could hear soft shuffling in the corridor beyond, the deliberate, patient steps of someone approaching. He had seconds to prepare, but he also had to make her understand she had to trust him. "You are alone in this," Daniel said softly. "No one else will warn you. You must act now, not later. He is coming for you, and you will not see it coming if you hesitate." The Queen shook her head, stepping back as if to put distance between herself and the terrifying truth. I cannot believe it," she whispered. "I have lived my life trusting him. He was supposed to protect me. He was supposed to love me." Daniel's jaw tightened. He wanted to reach out and take her hand, to offer comfort, but knew better. Respect was the only bridge he could cross. Sometimes those closest to us are the ones who hurt us most. I have seen it. I cannot stop what is in his heart, but I can stand between him and you. That is all I can do, trust me. I have never been wrong before, and I will not fail now." Her tears began to fall freely, streaking her glowing skin like silver rain. She inhaled sharply, trembling, but something changed in her posture. The terror in her eyes slowly transformed into a reluctant determination. She straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and met Daniel's gaze with a spark of steel. The footsteps grew louder. The shadow of Lord Vakar advanced down the hall. The Queen's breath quickened, but her resolve hardened. For the first time in her life, she understood what true courage looked like. Not the courage of a ruler, but the courage of someone who chooses life and truth over comfort and denial. Daniel adjusted his weapon, placing himself between her and the approaching danger. His heartbeat was steady despite the fear. He was ready to face whatever came, to fight for a life that was not his own, but one he could not abandon. In that chamber, under the pale light of the moons, the Queen finally understood. Trust was fragile, loyalty rare, and courage eternal. And tonight she would see both. The courage of a human who dared to stand between her and death, and the loyalty that no throne, no crown, and no empire could ever command. The first steps of the traitor echoed through the corridor. Time had stopped. Fear and hope clashed in the Queen's chest. And in that fragile, suspended moment, a silent promise was made. Whoever came for her, whoever betrayed her, Daniel would not let them win. The golden doors of the Queen's chamber trembled under the echo of approaching footsteps. Daniel tightened his grip on his sidearm, his knuckles white against the smooth metal. Every muscle in his body tensed, ready for the storm he had known was coming. Through the faint moonlight filtering in, he saw the shadow of Lord Vekar approaching, moving with a confidence that chilled Daniel's blood. Behind him followed two of the Queen's own guards, their faces hard, loyalty twisted by fear or ambition. Daniel recognized the expression, the same look he had seen in soldiers who betrayed their comrades on Earth. The Queen stepped behind him instinctively, fear and trust mingling in her wide eyes. "Is it true?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Is he really going to—" Daniel shook his head once, sharp and deliberate. "Yes, ma'am. Stay close to me. Do not speak unless I tell you. I will handle him." The chamber filled with tension, thick and heavy like the air before a storm. Vekar's silhouette emerged fully in the doorway, the red crystal dagger in his hand glinting dangerously. His eyes, once warm and familiar to the Queen, burned with hate and ambition. "Step aside, human," Vekar said, his voice a hiss of venom. "This is not your concern." Daniel planted his feet firmly, sidearm raised. "It is my concern if it means she lives." Vekar laughed, a cold, sharp sound that cut through the air like a knife. "Do you dare threaten me? A mere human? You do not know what you face. I am a prince of this empire. I hold the blood of thousands in my hands, and you think you can stop me?" Daniel's gaze did not waver. "Maybe not, but I can try, and I won't fail." The Queen's heart raced as she watched the standoff. She had lived through council meetings, political betrayals, and battles across her empire. Yet she had never felt the raw intensity of life and death so close. Her husband, her supposed protector, unborn, now threatened her very existence. And in front of him stood a human, one she had barely acknowledged before, willing to risk everything for her. Vekar raised his dagger, the crystal blade humming with lethal energy. The guards behind him mirrored his movements, stepping forward with deadly precision. Daniel fired a warning shot. A burst of blue energy hit the floor inches from Vekar's feet, sparks flying, throwing shadows across the walls. The chamber shook with the vibration. Vekar staggered slightly but recovered quickly, his eyes narrowing in fury. "You insolent human," he roared, advancing toward Daniel. Daniel moved to intercept, positioning himself as a shield between Vekar and the Queen. His mind worked faster than his muscles, calculating angles, predicting movements. Every lesson from Earth's battlefield surged through him now. This was no training exercise. This was life or death, for both the Queen and himself. The Queen stumbled back, clutching the edge of the golden table for support, eyes wide with terror. She had never imagined her chamber, her sanctuary, and could turn into a battlefield. She realized in that instant how fragile trust could be, how even love could hide a knife. Daniel's voice rang out, steady, commanding. "Move back! Stay behind me! I will not let him reach you." Vekar's smile was cruel, almost mocking, but Daniel saw the first flicker of uncertainty. The human's defiance was not something he had expected, not something his guards had faced before. And in that moment the Queen understood. Humans were unlike any creature of her empire. They did not bow to fear, nor did they hesitate in the face of impossible odds. The first clash of blades came with a spark of energy and metal. Daniel parried Vekar's strike, twisting and rolling, narrowly avoiding a lethal blow. The Queen gasped, clutching her chest as the reality of the fight sank in. This was no longer political intrigue. This was survival, and Daniel, the human guard she had once overlooked, was the only thing standing between her and death. The chamber erupted in chaos. The golden walls that once felt like home now rang with the clash of metal, the hum of energy weapons, and the shouts of alarmed guards. Daniel moved with precision, each step calculated, each movement a combination of human instinct and battle training. He had never fought an enemy like this. Lord Vekar was fast, skilled, and cruel. But Daniel had something stronger: determination, courage, and a heart that refused to back down. Vekar lunged forward, dagger raised, aiming straight for Daniel's chest. The human twisted, dodging the deadly blade by inches, Sparks flew as the weapon scraped along the polished floor, and a deep growl escaped Vakar's throat. "You think you can stop me? You are nothing." Daniel's voice was calm, almost eerily so. "Maybe, but I fight for her, and that makes me everything." The queen crouched behind a grand table, her hands pressed to her mouth. Her heart pounded. She had never imagined she would witness a fight like this. Her husband, the man she had loved and trusted, striking at a human who dared defy him. Yet something inside her stirred. Awe, hope, and the painful realization that true courage often came in unexpected forms. Daniel parried a second strike and countered with a kick that sent Vakar staggering back. The guards behind him hesitated, uncertain, watching the human defy their prince. Vakar's eyes blazed with anger. "You will pay for this," he roared. The battle moved toward the balcony. Energy blasts from Daniel's sidearm created temporary shields, sparks scattering across the floor. Vakar lunged again, faster this time, his dagger slicing through the air. Daniel met him with a flurry of precise strikes, dodges, and blocks, each one a testament to human perseverance under pressure. The queen could barely breathe as she watched him fight. He was bleeding from a shallow wound on his arm, but his focus never wavered. Every movement, every block, every counterattack was designed to protect her, to buy her precious seconds to survive. She realized then that this human, a creature from a distant planet, cared for her life more than anyone she had ever known. Vakar roared and swung wildly, desperation in his attacks. Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew the fight could not go on forever. One mistake, one miscalculation, and the queen could die before anyone could stop it. But humans had a reputation for endurance, for finding strength when everything seemed lost. He dug deep into that strength, pushing back, striking with precision, moving like a storm that could not be stopped. "Your time is over," Vakar shouted, raising his dagger for a killing strike. Daniel twisted just in time, catching the wrist, and with a swift movement, drove his combat knife into Vakar's side. The prince stumbled, eyes wide with shock, a howl of pain escaping him. The guards gasped and froze, unsure of what to do next. The queen's breath caught in her throat. "Daniel, you," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. She wanted to rush to him, to thank him, to hold him, but she stayed behind the table, knowing she could not risk stepping into the chaos. Daniel stood firm, even as the room echoed with shouts and the sounds of the fight dying down. Vakar staggered, then fell backward toward the balcony. The wind howled through the open doors, catching him as he slipped over the edge. He vanished into the night, leaving only silence and the faint scent of burning energy behind. The queen ran forward, finally breaking her paralysis. She caught Daniel as he stumbled from fatigue and shallow wounds. You saved me," she said, her voice breaking. Why?" Daniel smiled faintly, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "Because even humans have a heart, Your Majesty. And some hearts fight for more than themselves." She held him, trembling, her tears falling freely. For the first time she saw the truth about courage, loyalty, and trust. It did not matter that he was human. What mattered was that he had risked everything for her life, for her survival, for the right to live. The palace outside was still, the storm from the fight lingering in the air. The queen realized that legends could be true, and tonight she had witnessed one, the human who had stood between life and death, and refused to yield. The storm outside the palace raged with a furious howl, lightning streaking across the sky and illuminating the shattered battle in the queen's chamber. The golden walls bore scorch marks, and the polished floor was slick with sweat and blood. Daniel leaned against the edge of the grand table, trying to steady himself. Every muscle ached, every breath burned, but his eyes never left the doorway where the shadows of Vakar's loyal guards lingered, uncertain and hesitant after seeing their prince defeated. The queen knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she pressed gently against his wound. "Stay with me, Daniel. You can't leave me now. You've already given so much." Her voice cracked, full of emotion, gratitude, and fear. Daniel's smile was weak, but there was warmth in it. "I'll stay, Your Majesty. Humans, we don't give up easily, not when someone's life is on the line." He closed his eyes for a moment, gathering strength, even as the pain radiated from the shallow but sharp wound across his side. Vakar had fallen from the balcony, but the Queen knew the danger had not completely passed. His ambition had shaken the Empire, and even in his absence, his loyalists could act. Daniel sensed the same, and he pushed himself upright, wincing and scanning the room with alert precision. The human instinct to protect had become second nature. His mission was not yet over. The Queen looked at him with a mixture of awe and worry. Why do you risk so much for me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The palace, once a place of untouchable power, now felt fragile, almost human in its vulnerability. Daniel swallowed, trying to form the words. "Because you deserve someone to fight for you. Even when everyone else looks away. Even when the world says it's impossible." He paused, voice breaking slightly. "Because humans have something they call honor, something worth more than life itself." The Queen's eyes filled with tears, reflecting the lightning that split the alien night sky. She realized that all her years of rule, all her battles and negotiations, had never taught her what she now saw clearly. Courage did not belong to titles, crowns, or armies. It belonged to the heart willing to act when all else failed. Daniel adjusted his armor with a grunt, blood soaking the black fabric. He knew he could not remain upright forever, but he also knew he would not let fear dictate his actions. He had fought for kings and soldiers on Earth, for strangers who would never remember his name. Yet here, on this distant planet, he fought for someone who had inspired him more than he could have imagined. The Queen helped him sit, leaning on him for support. "You saved me from death, from betrayal," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I don't know how to repay you, Daniel. I never expected a human to care so much." Daniel shook his head, a small, tired smile on his lips. "You don't need to repay me. That's not why I fight. We humans, sometimes we fight simply because it's the right thing to do." He looked out the shattered balcony, where Vakar's fall had left only the swirling storm clouds below. And sometimes, it's about proving that courage matters, even when it's hopeless. For the first time, the Queen allowed herself to feel safe, not because the palace was secure, not because the guards were loyal, but because she knew one human had risked everything to protect her. And in that moment, she understood the true meaning of trust, something rarer than jewels, stronger than steel, and more valuable than power itself. She rested her head gently on his shoulder, the warmth of human courage comforting her in a way she had never experienced. "You're more than a guard," she whispered. "You're a legend." Daniel chuckled faintly, though the sound was weak. "Maybe, but legends are just stories. Tonight it's enough that you live. That's enough for me." Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the chamber a new calm settled. The battle had been won. The Queen had survived. And the human guard had proven something unforgettable, that even across galaxies, even against impossible odds, humanity could rise, protect, and inspire in ways no alien power could match. The palace of Varnus Prime was quiet now, but the echoes of the battle still lingered in every corner. The golden walls bore scorch marks, and the once polished floors were streaked with blood and energy burns. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the twin moons shining cold and bright over the alien city. The Empire had survived a night of treachery, and at its center stood a queen forever changed, and a human guard who had become legend. The Queen walked slowly through the chamber, her hands brushing over the marks of battle, over the broken furniture, over the symbols of a night that could have ended in death. Her violet eyes, wide and tearful the night before, now held a quiet strength. She thought of Daniel, the human who had stood between her and her husband's betrayal, who had risked everything for her life. She had doubted him, had questioned the trust she gave to a human. But now she understood. She found him sitting on the floor, leaning against a half-collapsed wall, his armor scratched, his side still bleeding, but his eyes bright and alert. When he saw her, he managed a tired smile. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "you're safe." She moved to kneel beside him, carefully pressing a hand to his shoulder. "I am because of you. You risked everything to save me. I cannot thank you enough." Her voice trembled, but there was no fear in her eyes anymore, only gratitude and awe. Daniel shook his head, wincing slightly at the pain in his side. "No thanks needed. Humans, we don't fight for glory. We fight because it's right. Because someone has to stand when others turn away." The Queen studied him. "You are extraordinary. I have ruled an empire, faced betrayal, led armies, but you showed me something I could never have learned from any council or general. You showed me courage in its purest form, and loyalty that cannot be bought." Daniel's eyes flicked to the balcony where the wind still whipped past the open doors. Sometimes it's the impossible odds that make courage meaningful. Humans have a way of standing when everything else fails. Tonight, that was all I could do. For the first time, the Queen felt something she had never felt before. Not fear, not duty, but a profound connection to another being. A human whose bravery had saved her life, whose loyalty had proven stronger than titles, crowns, and even love twisted by ambition. She knew that stories of her reign would be written for centuries. But this night would become the tale she would tell most often. The night when a human stood between life and death, and refused to back down. Word of the event spread quietly at first. The council called it a tragedy averted, and the empire mourned the loss of a prince who had sought power through betrayal. But in whispers in the quiet corners of the palace, the story of the human guard grew. Soldiers, diplomats, and citizens spoke in awe of the human who had risked everything to save a queen. A story of bravery that no alien power could fully comprehend. The Queen often walked the halls where the battle had taken place. Sometimes she would stop and place a hand on the table Daniel had leaned against, feeling the echo of his courage. She thought of him often, a human who had defied expectations, who had proven that even across galaxies, the heart of humanity was fierce, unyielding, and noble. One evening, she stood on the balcony, looking out at the stars above Varnus Prime. She held a small token in her hand, the insignia of Daniel's corps, scratched and battered from battle, but shining with meaning. She whispered softly, almost to the wind, "You warned me when no one else could. You fought when no one else would. You showed me that even a human, far from home, far from your own kind, can be a hero beyond legend." And in the empire the word spread. Among the citizens and soldiers they said, "When all others bow in fear, it is the human who stands. When death comes dressed in betrayal, it is the human who protects. And when courage seems impossible, humanity proves it is unstoppable." The story of Daniel Cole became more than history. It became inspiration. Across planets and galaxies, beings whispered of the human who defied fate, who challenged power, and who saved a queen with nothing but heart, loyalty, and courage. And in the quiet moments, when the Queen looked at the night sky, she would smile. Not